Tech Talk Tuesday, number 148. Okay, boys and girls, let's line up and talk about some cool stuff. Things we've learned in our years. I'll have a seat right here. Talk to you for a minute. Hey, Brad. Hey, Steve. Got some interesting things I'm going to talk to you about. Charlie, good to see you, brother. Daryl, I'm going to say a couple names while we're lining everybody up here. Thank you all for tuning in. Hey, Mark. Hey, Josh. Hey, Chuck. Got you a 148. Good. Steve. Ed. Can you all hear me okay? Everybody good? Everybody got good sound? Hey, Ronnie. Mark. Ed, I hope y'all can see my parachute. Hey, Darren. Yes, thank you. Happy anniversary to me and Jackie. Thank you very much. Yeah, Steve, we hung out for 7 years or so before we got married. So we've been together almost 49 or 50 years, but this is our 42nd wedding anniversary. And I wanted to say thank you. Got great response from you folks today. Sam, Brian, Ronnie, everybody for saying hi. Hey, James. Thank you all for wishing us a happy anniversary. I see a lot of people. Hey, Jim, on time. Look at you go. Hey, Chuck. Yep. Okay. While the names are signing up here, let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. Okay, you guys know by now, if you've been following and watching, that Jackie records this show, and we put it on our YouTube channel later today or tomorrow, and Star Racing GA is our YouTube channel. There's 130 or 40 Tech Talk Tuesdays on there, which is really great that I get to share this with so many folks. I get to talk to you about some interesting things, and also, as long as you are here, hey, Scott and David, watching on my Facebook page, you can go and rewatch it as I save it probably for a long time, and then we'll post it on the Star Racing page tomorrow. But people that ask me questions and ask me ideas and want my opinions and stuff on the YouTube channel, I don't usually monitor that. So some folks get mad at me when I don't respond, but I do respond on Facebook, and I do respond on Star Racing Facebook and George Bryce on Facebook. So if you want to ask me a question, you can email me at george@starracing.com. My email address has been the same address for ever since Al Gore invented the internet. It was george@starracing.com. I have been George at Star Racing for 42 years, and that's about how long there has been internet out there. So that's kind of weird, but hey, Joe. Anyway, click in, folks. Let's sign up. I got a little bit of a lift curve here to talk to you about. That'll be interesting in cam design. And hey, Graham. Also, I have many folks ask me all the time. I post these on the internet. This billet compensator ramp for the Milwaukee 8 Harleys. We don't sell these for the twin cams because the twin cam part is pretty bulletproof. This, let me show you a stock one. This is a stock Milwaukee 8 compensator ramp. I'll show you how it fits on the crank and why it makes noise. And this one has really nice wear from the springs on the back of it, and it has really nice wear because it is a metal to metal part where the two ramp cams rub each other. And this one breaks. This will break in no time. Some folks get 10,000, 20,000 miles out of theirs, but they probably ride their Milwaukee 8 like it's like the transmission and the primary is made out of plastic. I ride mine very carefully. I have several bikes. One of them I ride really, really hard, and if there's something that will break, I can tear it up. My all original, all stock 2020 Road Glide Special is all stock, and it's got stock everything in the primary, and I don't break parts in it because I drive it like I want to go somewhere with it and come home with it without working on it. But if you want to run yours hard, may I recommend that you get you one of these right here. Jim Bob, I want to tell you, 3/4 cams were shipped. Just so you guys all know that they're waiting, back ordered, they have been shipped to me. I expect to get them this week, so check back with me a little later. When I see your name pop up, it helps me remember. But listen, y'all, this is made by Liberty Gears. They make the Pro Stock transmissions, Pro Mod transmissions, and some really unbelievable bulletproof parts. This is made out of a real proprietary, high-quality part. He CNC machines these. He has a custom brooch made. It's about $4,000 for the brooch to spline these. And this is a really cool part. It's made by Harley. I'm sure they vendor it to someone. It's really hard. Like the surface finish is really hard for wear, but it is so brittle that this thing, if you throw it on the floor hard, it might break in 3 pieces because it's really thin here, and it breaks in several parts, and then it crumbles. So if you're going to ride your Milwaukee 8 hard, or put a clutch that doesn't slip, or you want to go to the drag strip and break the rear belt, the drive belt, and break a chain on the back of it, get you a billet part here. This will wear. This is, like I said, I'll show you why, but this is a metal-to-metal part. They do touch each other, and the only protection they have is some good high-quality lubricant in the primary. This is also the same cross-section here. It is just as thin, but these don't shatter because they're made out of shock-proof material compared to the stock part. And I'm not going to make a commercial out of this because they are some good competition. There are guys out there that make a rubber one that has very little travel, and there's also companies that make these out of other materials, and they are good also. But the reason I want you to know why there are 4 companies that are selling this different styles is because it is a part that needs to be fixed. This is a part that needs to be replaced. This is a part that needs to be replaced. Now, I'm going to move the camera carefully over to the crankshaft and show you this assembly on the end of a Milwaukee 8 crankshaft. Let this camera settle a little bit. The primary chain goes around this sprocket. This is the motor sprocket. I don't know why they call it that, because the motor is an electric motor. And just to be a little bit silly, this is the starter motor. This is a motor. This is an electric motor. So it's okay to call this a starter motor. But over here, they call this a motor sprocket. That's just Harley. That's just what they call them. But it's not. It is the engine drive gear. It goes on the crankshaft. The crankshaft is a splined piece all the way from one end to the other. So all of these parts inside, I'm going to take them off one at a time and show you. Thrust washer on here. This is the other part of the ramp cam. These wear really bad too, because it's a metal-to-metal part, and you can see this is the stock ramp that I was just showing you. See how it's got some wear? But this is okay. They're going to wear. Look, it's no way around it. These usually last 20,000 miles, and they start getting worn really bad. Some people replace them. Some people just deal with it. But what really gets, 2 things. On the Milwaukee 8, this part breaks because it's fragile. It's made too hard. But what really wears out on them are these springs. And I know some folks don't understand that these are springs. But this is a cupped washer. This is a this is a spring. And these are springs. The way they are, this is what keeps the pressure on these 2 parts to keep them from slipping. I hope you can see all this. As I said, this is a live piece, so being live, we might have a little bit of it's not always a smooth operation when it's live. I'm going to try and simulate this. Okay, these springs behind here, these are springs. These when you tighten this nut up as tight as you get this bolt in here and you torque it down to 150 foot-pounds or whatever the Harley manual says, it's a lot of torque goes on this. And these springs keep these parts together so that this compensator is made to, and I know that sounds dumb to car guys, that a crankshaft will do this. But when you're idling on your Harley, your twin cam or your Milwaukee 8, this is going like this. And it's working these springs out back here. These springs, they are smashed flat, and they have a little bit of give to keep this from slipping. Now, when I do a 150, 60 foot on my bagger, I can hear it doing this sometimes. Let me get it. There we go. It can slip, but look how much room and travel it has. It has a lot of room to travel. I know this is a weak show, y'all. Bear with me. So it's going to have some wear. But this crankshaft, because it has one rod pin, this one's welded, and it has two connector rods, one for the front cylinder and one for the rear cylinder. Everybody doesn't know this, so yeah, that's me. Flip it back over. All right. Everybody doesn't know this. You got the one rod for the front, one rod for the back. Yeah, fluid damper would be cool if they made something like that, but they don't. They wouldn't be able to put enough travel in it, I don't think. And where would it go? It would have to have these pieces on it. But I want to tell you these teeth, and this is a sprocket. But look, I want you guys to know this is a very highly developed part that's been decades in the making. And if you only could see what this crankshaft's doing when it's idling, this crankshaft is sitting in this engine going like this. Clack, 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 clack. And when it goes 6,000 RPM and the piston's going up on the back, the piston's going up on the front, the piston's going up and down, crankshaft's turning, connector rods are swinging in and out, this crankshaft stops dead in its tracks. It stops dead in its tracks twice because there's two TDCs, one for the front, one for the rear. It stops at the bottom dead in its tracks. The crankshaft stops dead. It's bottom dead center on the front, it stops. At bottom dead center on the rear, it stops. Top dead center on the front, it stops. Top dead center on the rear, it stops. So the crankshaft, being that it only has one rod pin, this crankshaft is a jackhammer. And you can hear, without me having to make sound effects, now, if you can't stand that noise inside your primary, you need to get you a solid front sprocket. Listen to my words. If you can't stand the noise and you want to get rid of that noise, get you a solid front sprocket. And when you get the solid compensator eliminator, everything this crankshaft does is tied to this 1-to-1. So whatever the crank's doing, so is this chain. So now, instead of this being the shock absorber for the crankshaft, now that solid sprocket that I see people buy all the time because they're cheap, the solid sprocket's going like this, and so the chain's going like this. And then the clutch basket now becomes the compensator. So your clutch basket is in there jackhammering, and then the clutch basket will break. So what they'll do is they'll buy a billet clutch basket next because it broke because they made this not have enough travel, or they're trying to go move the weakest link from one link to the next, to the next, to the next. Now, this fast bike, this one's going to be a 9-second Milwaukee 8 bagger. I'm going in the 9s with it for sure. And it's going to have a compensator. It will have the billet ramp cam. And it also will have a stock clutch basket because my clutch basket is not going to be a shock absorber. My clutch basket is going to be just a basket to hold the plates. This, I'm going to keep this and let this be the shock absorber. Have I used a solid one before? Yes, I have. And guess what I learned? Everything hooked to the solid sprocket or the compensator eliminator sprocket, whatever's hooked to it explodes. I've seen the crankshafts break off right here. This big crankshaft's ratcheting, this gear's ratcheting, the chain's ratcheting, the clutch batchet's ratcheting, and then the transmission is in here. The gears are just really small, lightweight, weak parts, so it breaks third gear in here when you get rid of the compensator, and when you put a clutch kit on, it won't slip. Listen to me, this is designed to slip some. Your clutch is designed to slip some. If you put a clutch together with some lockup, some plates, some billet basket, and some clutch that doesn't slip anymore, you're taking the shock absorber out here. Have you ever ridden one of these bikes without a shock absorber? Have you ever ridden in your car with solid struts on it instead of shocks? Well, this crankshaft and the transmission and the clutch and the primary feels the same thing your back feels when you get rid of all the shock absorption and make it go solid. Okay. I hammered on that enough. I jackhammered on it enough. All right, I'm gonna clean my hands off a little bit because all that stuff was greasy on purpose. And I'm gonna talk about camshaft design for a minute. And these, please understand guys and girls, these are my opinions, my ideas. And I'm not saying anybody's was right. I'm not saying that the one compensator ramp is better than the other. I'm not saying that the Dark Horse or the TTS or the Star Racing or the Cyclorama and all those guys, they all are making something better than this. This is quiet and it's hard and it doesn't wear out, but it breaks. There's a difference between wearing out and breaking. Wearing out is when this gets smeared up pretty bad, and breaking is when this separates into lots of pieces. Okay, I'm finished with that for now. I'll move this stuff to the side. I wanted to finish that by saying that I'm not trying to throw one under the bus or the other. Great question. This piece right here, this piece has to be aligned with the right amount of spacers and the right amount of washers in order to have this whole kit aligned with the clutch basket. Clutch basket has to be in the right place. This has to be in the right place. And the way this is made, I hope I can show you. The way this is made, I hate to throw all this stuff on the ground right here live. That would be embarrassing. The way this is made is this sets the center of the crankshaft in the cases. I don't use the bearings that some guys use. None of my racing bikes had the trailer bearings. There's some guys want to put the Timken in this side where there's one bearing torqued against the other bearing and they're pulled together like on a spindle for a trailer or a front end on a car. I don't like those. There are plenty of people that sell them, plenty of people like them. I'm not saying they're wrong. It's just not my style. I like a nice roller bearing here and a nice roller bearing here so the crankshaft can just find its center, but it's located based on this stack pack and the crankshaft is not in a bind. It has a little left or right float to it. Pro Stocker that we ran, 11,000, 10,500 RPM forever and forever. Allowed the crank to find its center without a lot of movement. If you put a Timken where it's pulling left and pulling right and you torque them all together, it's in tension here on the bearing all the time. And if you lose the Timken bearing, the crank can go over and wipe out everything on the cam side. It'll wipe out the oil pump, then it blows the engine up, or to wipe out the cams, and that'll take metal right through the oil pump. So it's another place to go wrong, in my opinion, is to have the crank where it can go this way with a bearing failure on a Timken style here. Just my opinion. Please don't throw me under the bus because I said that. But all my race bikes, the ones that we ran sixes, make 400 horsepower, the ones that we have blown with turbos and nitrous and superchargers, we run the roller bearing here. The S&S 160 Pro Stock engine has roller bearing here and roller bearing here. Not a Timken. Okay, back to the cam design now. It's actually cam design, but this is automotive, car, motorcycle, 4-cylinder, 2-cylinder, 8-cylinder. I don't care what cylinder it is. This is one of the ideas that when you see that we do sell our own camshafts, we have them made to our specifications, we have them made to our design, and we have our ideas, just like a 60-foot at the drag strip, how fast we want to get it going, how soon. When you go to the drag strip and you get a 60-foot time in your car, on your motorcycle, you're sitting still, like when the lobe comes along and hits, like when the lifter and the lobe come together, you're doing the same thing with your 60-foot. You can't go 60 feet instantly. You have to accelerate the vehicle, the car. It goes into maximum acceleration, and you hope you're going really fast when you get to the 60-foot clock. On the camshaft, you have to start the roller, the wheel on the lifter. You have to start it rolling before you can get it going too fast. This is really, really small amount of acceleration. Well, it's a lot of acceleration right here, but it has peak speed somewhere in here when you're going from going slow to going fast. But it's going nothing to a lot in a very short period of time. And in our mind, if you get into camshaft ideas, you think you want it to be closed until you're ready for it to be open, and then you want it to be open, and then you want it to be closed when you're ready for it to be closed. You can't have a cam look like the brown one, because it'll break the wheel off the lifter. It'll just break it right off. It'll just like snap it off. So you got like a speed bump in a parking lot. If you come up to a speed bump that looks like this in your car and you hit it, that's hitting a curb. That's like hitting the curb on the sidewalk. Speed bump looks like this. You can come up to it, hit it, and roll over it, and come back down again. But if you hit a curb, it'll actually knock the wheel, it'll knock the front end off the car. Same thing it will do on your lifters. If you've got the camshaft that makes a lot of noise and you can hear the noise in the engine, and think, you car guys, we shut the hood. They may have an insulated hood, may have an insulated firewall, maybe not. Maybe we have a helmet on, maybe we got wide open exhaust, and we don't get to hear the valve train noise. But if you get on the guy right here, all the valve train noise is right between your knees. Clackety, 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 clackety. It's going off in here, right? So you get to hear all of that. So a nice camshaft for your Harley is one that has a pretty slow acceleration ramp, and it has a pretty slow deaccelerating ramp, so it doesn't make a lot of noise. But that doesn't hurt horsepower, because if you start that ramp at the right time and you finish that ramp at the right time, you can make the power you want within the power curve that matters to you. And that's part of the experimentation, trying to learn. If you've been in the Harley business as long as I have, in the engine business as long as I have, you know that some camshafts make a lot of noise and some camshafts are quiet. I had a really fast Corvette one time, had twin turbos, and the engine was really quiet. But at 1900 RPM, you could hear all the lifters rattle in it. And it was at some speed, some harmonic, at some place that you could hear the valve train noise. It might have been the rocker arms clacking, push rods, lifters, cam lifters. Something was making a resonance or had a frequency that made noise there. But any RPM below, any RPM after was nice and quiet. On a Harley, if you've got one that's really noisy through the air cleaner, or really noisy when you're sitting there, put your ear up against the valve cover. Like when you put your ear, like right here. If you put your ear near this, you can hear the noise in here. And it's not supposed to be that noisy. Hey, but if it's a racing machine and you're going to put your helmet on and you're going to have open exhaust, the exhaust will muffle some of that noise that you hear in the engine, and some racing cams are noisy. And then, of course, the helmet helps muffle that noise. But, man, back when we were dynoing engines a lot and we had the exhaust going out of the room through some dyno mufflers, and the engine noise was so brutal that you could hear just the valve train screaming. And my friend, Ben Strader over there at EFI University, he spintrons a lot, runs it a lot. And his valve train noise is screaming, and it's no pistons in the engine. And the valve train is screaming. So that's pretty interesting stuff. I know that we're slowly but surely running out of time, but I want to tell you that you don't have to close a valve as fast as people think they do. Now, I drew this parachute here just as kind of a dumb idea. But if you've ever watched the guy that comes in at the race on Sunday with the American flag hooked on the bottom of his feet here or hooked on his suit, and he's coming in, and right before he lands, he pulls these brakes. These are little brakes. He reaches up there, and right before he lands, he flares. He'll pull the parachute in tight, and he will go up and get closer to the parachute, and then when he lands, it's a little bit softer. It takes the speed out right when it lands. And I see the Vogel guys, and I see some of my Andrews guys, and I see some Cam guys on here, and I know I'm talking kind of the wrong language for those engineers because they know exactly what the words are, but I'm trying to talk to everyday Joe that buys the cams, that we want for the valve to come down to the seat fast. But right when we get to right where it sits on the seat, we want to pull these brakes. We want to pull this, and we want to flare our landing in to where it lands solid and quiet. Because when this is landing, and a lot of folks don't realize this, but it's on the compression stroke. When the intake valve lands, the piston's coming up on the compression stroke, and whatever pressure we can keep above the ring is what's going to make the power. And if we come in here and land hard and this valve bounces, because it hits and bounces, like you'll see this guy, when he comes in a little too fast, you'll break your leg, it'll bounce, he'll hop along, and then roll. If you do that with your valve train, you're going to hop this valve off the seat, and whatever that compression you built for only 45 or 50 degrees of a whole revolution of the compression stroke and the intake stroke, you bounced it and let the pressure out, so you lost your power. Anyway, that's enough for another day. I'm going to tell you more about that, but think about these ramps, the acceleration ramp. We want to launch this 60 foot with our lifter and our cam to where we don't smoke the tire and we don't shake the tire. We want to launch the motorcycle like we did, or the car, like a really great 60 foot, where we take this lifter and get it going and then get going real fast. So you got to get it rolling, and then give it a lot of speed. When you come to the end and you land it, you want it to coming in fast, and then you want to flare and pull the brakes and just slow that lifter down so it can sit on the seat smooth so you can make power in the RPM range you want. A couple fixes real quick that we see. Guys will put really heavy valve springs in here to control this, and people will put really heavy valve springs in here to keep this when you get this acceleration going too fast and it gets to the top and the lifter keeps going off the nose. That's called loft. That's another story for another day. And then they'll put heavy springs in there to try to control that. But when it lands, if it lands in the wrong place, it wrecks also, just like this guy. If he lands at the wrong speed in the wrong place, he's in big trouble. He won't be parachuting long. But thank you all for that. I have on they look like Beatles socks, but it says Beagles. The Beagles. That goes for Julie's little puppy named Lucy. I got me some Beagle socks. Anyway, God bless you all. Have a great night. 148 is over. I look forward to seeing y'all next Tuesday on 149, and I'll share some more interesting things that everybody doesn't know. A lot of people do know, but I'm talking to you guys that don't know everything. And I am definitely learning the more I do this. Thank y'all for watching. May God bless y'all. Have a great night.